good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are. Yeah, today, and thanks for spending part of your day with us to talk about kind of what's new in the utilities for Civil 3D 2023.1. Before we really get going, a little bit about me. Again, my name is Joe Hedrick, and I've been at IMAGINiT. I'm working on my 23rd year being a professional geek. But prior to that, I did spend 5 years in a private survey engineering firm, then moved over to the municipal world for 3.5 years, and have been with IMAGINiT ever since. So my responsibilities are working with clients to assist in implementation of really all of Autodesk Civil Survey mapping products. So Civil 3D, Map 3D, InfraWorks, that product line. So without any further ado, our agenda today, first and foremost is kind of what are the utilities for Civil 3D, and then what's new. We'll go through kind of a quick demonstration of, the newer ones, and with time permitting, we'll kind of hit some oldies and goodies. And I definitely want to save time for questions and wrap up. So kind of really first things first, it's been a while since I've done this type of presentation. And that's partly by design, and partly, quite honestly, is because we got a little behind internally as well. But one thing that historically everybody's used to is we release the utilities in the spring. And in working with our dev teams, they came back and said, hey Joe, it's a really busy time of year for us. It's really hard to pack new features, new functions into the utilities, as well as making them ready and available for whatever the next version of Autodesk product is. Right, here's today specifically, we're talking about Civil 3D utilities. However, we have utilities for Revit, utilities for Vault Client, utilities for Vault Server. And what they asked was that we get the Civil 3D utilities, kind of on the same release cadence as all of the other ones, right? So what that means to you is expect, moving forward, compatibility release in the spring. And that's going to allow us to hopefully do it much sooner after Autodesk releases, their next year products, if you will. So, historically Autodesk releases in the spring, and what we want to be able to do is release, our utilities very soon after Autodesk releases their products. So with it being a compatibility release, what that really means is that don't expect anything new, just expect the same great tools working on the updated version of product. And then a little bit later in the year, in the fall, expect what we're calling a .1 release, or a feature release, right? And that's where we will, add or update, features and routines. That was our plan for this year. Obviously, we're a little behind that since we're talking about it right now, but nonetheless, this is the cadence that we're shooting for. So what are the IMAGINiT utilities for Civil 3D? Basically, they are 19 purpose-built tools that make everyday tasks easier. And how they got their start was, I am part of a team of 15, 16 colleagues that are spread out across North America working with you. And all the time we're hearing, hey, it'd be really nice if Civil 3D did this, it'd be really great if Civil 3D did that. And we have a way that we internally, log that information, rank that information, +1 that information, if you will, so that when it comes time to start planning for what are we going to do, we certainly look at that list first, to determine, is there anything that kind of rises to the top. Our support team is another great place that we get ideas from. with what we're planning. And I would invite anybody, if you've got ideas for utilities, please feel free to reach out to us. There will be Lori, I think, is putting her email in the chat. There will be an email address at the at the end of the presentation as well. Feel free to reach out with your suggestions. So on the screen is a list of all 19 of the tools, and a couple of things to note. This particular release, we tried to really make it. There's a little something for everyone, and what I mean by that is we've got a new utility. We've got updates to several other utilities. We fixed a couple of bugs that have been kind of persistently nagging. So I say, there's something in here for everyone. Now, because we're up to 19 tools, it's just there's no way in the time that we're here today, to talk about all 19 of them. So my goal is to talk about what's changed and what's new first, and then I will hit kind of as many of the best of, if you will, after the fact, so that we can round out our time. All right, first things first, the new utility is kind of going along with our theme of piping tools, and we've been on that theme for quite some time, but we're adding yet something else to the piping utilities, and that's being able to export and import from Excel. Right. Autodesk has several hydraulic analysis programs, the HydroFlow tools, storm and sanitary analysis, the newer Innovise utilities, and those are all great. However, for a multitude of reasons, our clients say, what, we do our hydraulic analysis in Excel. So what we wanted to be able to do was provide a way to get data to Excel, make using your spreadsheets, etc., what you do your analysis, and then be able to get that information out of Excel. Right, so that is the absolute new feature, and we will take a look at that first, so that I'm not jumping around between PowerPoint slides and the product. We'll go through the slides first. We updated the pipe clearance utility, right? And this is one that's had somewhat of a persistent bug in it for a while now, in that if you labeled 2 or more pipe crossings, it would set the note displayed. They would all be the same. So we have fixed that. So thank you for everybody who reached out to us. It took a while to find it and fix it, but that has been resolved now, so that you can label as many different pipe crossings as you want. On popular demand, we updated the Flattening Explode feature line utility. And the way that this utility always worked was, it would take feature lines or survey figures, you would run the command, and it would create a polyline at elevation 0. However, it would retain all the curves. The way that the routine historically worked was whatever layer was current at the time was the layer that geometry went on. Right? We got a lot of feedback of basically said we need to provide some options as for layer control. So what we've done is we've added some options so that the user gets to select what layer that geometry, when it gets exploded, is going to reside on. We updated the swap multiple pipe parts routine, in that, we had gotten some feedback, in this particular use case, there were a lot of structures in a gravity network. And essentially what would happen is, they needed to make a wholesale change of, a 48-inch manhole to a 60-inch manhole. Well, that can take time if you've got 30, 40 different structures. So what we've allowed, or what we added to the routine, is the ability to just swap out everything for something else. And we will certainly take a look at that. All right, so without any more ado, I'm going to switch over to my Civil 3D. And we're going to start with the pipe and board export, because that's it's kind of the brand new feature, if you will. And like I was saying before, the whole idea behind this was to be able to export a run to a spreadsheet of your choosing, let you do the analysis, and then import the data back from that spreadsheet. Right, and we worked with a couple of clients as we developed this particular routine, and I was taken back with how elaborate their spreadsheets were that they used for their analysis. So the example that I have is, I've tried to sanitize it to an extent. I took a lot of stuff out of them, just to protect kind of their intellectual property, but still be able to provide an idea of how this is going to work. So on the screen, I've got a very simple pipe run, five structures, 4 pipes, I believe. And you'll notice right here on the ribbon is the new button. And the very first thing we'll do is we will export the gravity pipes to Excel. And that's going to pull up a dialog box. After I pick a part in the desired network, it's gonna pull up a dialog box. But basically, it's prompting us to just pick a part in the network that you want to export. So we are exporting the entire network. If it's okay if you only touch 1 or 2 pipes, within that the entire network, we're gonna ignore anything that doesn't change. But that's how the routine's gonna work. I'm going to start at the bottom of this dialog box and work our way to the top of it. Over on the left-hand side, this is all the information that we can export. And it's essentially every property of gravity structures and every property of gravity pipes. And you get to pick and choose what you want to include and the arrangement of how you're going to include it and where it's going to land in Excel. So I might want, let's start with pipe name, invert start, invert end, right? If you want to, move these up and down once they're over here in the list, we can do that with these utility, or with these buttons, the arrow up and arrow down. But as you can see, this gets, it's nothing hard about this, obviously. It's just a little tedious, building out this list the entire time. So you only need to build it once, which is certainly a good thing, and you can save that configuration, right? So just to show what happens when we save the configuration, I'm going to bring up one of my export configurations, and we can see everything that we're going to export, starting with the beginning structure, diameters, rim elevations, then inverts, length, diameter, slope, etc. The options here allow us to do one of 2 things. And this is purely based on kind of your particular workflow, right? We've talked to some clients that said, we have a particular spreadsheet that it's very project by project specific, and I want to inject the data into that. Okay, we can certainly do that. The other school of thought there is I've got this template spreadsheet that's got everything set up, and I just want you to create a new spreadsheet based off of that template spreadsheet to start the analysis. So we can do this either way, right? We can either say, I want to create a new spreadsheet based off of a template, or in my case, I'm just going to update an existing spreadsheet and then I'm going to tell it what sheet or what tab inside of that spreadsheet I want this data to reside on. Right. The only other box that we haven't talked about is, it's going to start exporting data, and I need to tell it the column and row to start with. And after that, we hit export, and it's going to very quickly go ahead and write to that file, and I can open the spreadsheet after that. Oops. All right, so here is the data that we exported, right, in the order that we selected from the dialog box. Now, one thing to keep in mind with this, if you want to be able to import the data back, you have to include the pipe name somewhere in what's being exported. Right? And I'll say that one more time. If you want to import this back, you have to include the pipe name as part of the export. Doesn't matter where it is. It just needs to go along with it for the ride. Now, so imagine that this is our analysis, spreadsheet, and I've seen a lot of these over the last 20 years or so. And everybody tends to have some variation of, here's the starting structure, here's the ending structure. They'll have hydraulic calculations somewhere in the middle of that, or somewhere in it. Drainage areas, runoff coefficients, time of concentrations, the flow Q equals CIA, all that good stuff. But and then that's what's going to drive the sizing parameters and the grade line calculations, etc. So in my case, I wanted to simplify that just a little bit so we can focus on what the tool does. And let's say that here's the 24-inch pipes that it exported, and we can see those in my profile view there. There's some varying slopes, and here's where we can start to to use the power of Excel, and maybe that based off our analysis, we need to increase the sizing of 2 pipes, but I also want to change the slopes on a couple more. Okay, I'm going to make sure that gets saved, and we will exit out of it. Similarly, just like we exported the pipe information, we're going to import the gravity pipes, right? I can pick and choose, just like we did before. I've got a configuration already stored. We hit import. Whoops, got to tell it a spreadsheet. I forgot that one, so I'm going to pick that spreadsheet. It knows what sheet to look at. Now we'll hit import, and it's going to tell us how many rows that it examines, and then it's going to tell us how many rows or how many pipes are going to get updated as part of the routine, right? Anything that stays the same isn't going to be updated, and I'll show you that in just a minute. But we hit OK, and you can see that not only the pipes resized, the slopes changed. I don't know if it was obvious or not, but I had a 10th node drops as part of this, or in my spreadsheet. It's certainly respecting that. Right. However, right now I've got a conflict though, right? This larger pipe is conflicting with this crossing pipe, right? And it's happening, really right there. So, the power of this, and we can truly just kind of iterate, back and forth, is, right, maybe let's drop that pipe, let's drop it, 3/4 of a foot. Right? And we see that those upstream and downstream inverts changed at that point. And again, I can hit save, I can hit close, and going through just re-importing oops. Oh, my OneDrive is syncing it right now. Yeah, so in this case, I really only affected 2 pipes, right? The last 2, because I essentially dropped this one and then this one's going to come along for the ride. So examine the spreadsheet, but only 2 pipes changed, and we make that change and we can see that drop take a hold. So, hopefully that gives you an idea of what we're shooting for with this. This is, I'm going to say R1 of this feature. And because it's R1 of this feature, right now we are only updating pipes. We're not updating any structure information. So if you think that being able to resize structures is something that you would want to do with this particular utility, please drop me a note. I'm certainly interested in the use case and how you think that would work. All right, so while we're in this drawing, let's go ahead and touch on a couple of other things that are either, well, these aren't new, they're just updated and fixed, if you will. So I mentioned the pipe clearance utility, and it's just going to ask me to pick a pipe style for that, and it's going to ask me the first pipe, then it's going to ask me the crossing pipe, and that clearance bubble, if you will, is going to get put in. I will pull these off in just a second. I'm going to run this routine again, and we'll run it here, and we'll pick on that one. So now we've got 2, that pipe crossing, and then let's pull this one off. Right, and you can see the bug that we had is essentially in previous versions of this, whatever the last, whichever crossing got labeled last, it would actually force all of the other crossing annotations to be the same. But you can certainly see that we've taken care of that at this point. Right, moving along with, I talked about swap pipe, or the swap parts routine that we've enhanced just a little bit more. So when I click on, swap parts, it's asking me to either, select the parts to swap, or AL for all. Believe me, I wanted to use A as well, but A is already a built-in selection method for AutoCAD. So we couldn't use that. But at this point, if we type AL and then it's going to ask me to pick a part. So I'm just going to pick that structure, and maybe for kicks we want to make all of them 72-inch structures, and you can see before I do it, I've got a couple of 60s, a couple of 48s, and we'll say okay, and instantly it swaps all of those out to 72s. Right? If I would have picked on a pipe, then I would have got the pipe options to resize literally all of the pipes at one time. All right, so the last thing that we changed, if you will, or updated, the last 2 things. I didn't list this as a feature, but I'm going to talk about flatten explode feature lines now. And one of the things that we wanted to do, kind of as we started figuring out as we were looking at this, that we had settings kind of scattered all across the product. Right? We had some stuff under settings and options. However, a couple of routines had their own version of settings. So we have pulled all of the settings together for all of the IMAGINiT utilities into one dialog box, which is kind of nice. So for pipe clearance, here's where you can select what's going to be in that note label. The pipe import export. This is where we, if you noticed, I had 4 or 5 configurations already saved. So here's where you can set the configurations folder. So, if you've got a company standard, want to put this on a network drive somewhere, you certainly can. But under Flatten Explode feature lines, here's basically what we changed. And the way that it always worked, the routine did, we would run the explode routine, and any objects that were created, went on the current layer. So what we've done now is we've given the ability for a lot more control, right? So we can do current, which will make it work like the products always worked. We can select source. Source essentially means whatever the layer currently is of the object, that's going to be the layer of the resulting polyline. We can specify, right? So if I know that I want everything just to go on, some new C- flatten layer, I could put that in. If the layer doesn't exist in the drawing, it will be created here. Or we could select prompt, which means, as the routine runs right at the end, it's going to prompt the dialog box, for the user to select what layer the resultant polylines should go on. So we'll look at that option first. The routine runs just like it always has. Flatten feature lines, and let's just pick this one back. Right, this top of bank. So I'm going to pick on that. It's going to ask me, do I want to erase the existing one? We'll say yes. And because I had it set to prompt, I'll pull this over toward the middle just a little bit, right? We get a list of, hey, what layer do I want that geometry to go on, right? And I'm just going to pick something different, with different properties, and you can see, line types changed, etc. Now, that being said, if we go back to options and come to feature lines and say source, I think this may work a little closer to how people originally thought it should have. And that, now when we run the routine, select feature line, we can truly say all. Do I want to erase the existing entities? Yes. And just like that, you can see nothing appears that it changed. However, if we were to look at any of these, we can certainly see that this is now a polyline. It's just keeping the original layer geometry. Okay, so I was just checking my notes just to make sure that I didn't miss anything. That's kind of what's new and what's been updated in this version of the utilities. And I know some of you already have them. However, if you're asking yourself what is the best way to get it, there's a couple of ways to do it. Number one, you can go, if you don't have them at all and you're an IMAGINiT client, these are free to use to you. We will give them to you, and you can go to our website. There's a whole page for the client utilities, and you just put in your email address and request them. And if you're in our database already, you'll kind of instantly get a license key and a download code. If you're not, then that request will go to our client advocacy team, and they will get you sorted out and hooked up. If you already have the utilities, one of the ways is just to go to About and check for updates. And if you are on an older version, then you will it will tell you and prompt you to be able to download it, etc. like that. So those are kind of the two ways, the two easiest ways, to be able to get the utilities. If you don't do a check for updates, behind the scenes, it runs about every other week, and kind of checks, for updates for you, and you can just wait till the next time your particular system checks, and then if there's an update, it will prompt moving forward. Like always, a couple of years ago, we consolidated, really all of the utilities for all the versions. Way back in the day, it used to be only the newest utilities were only available for the newest version of product, et cetera. But we made that change a couple of years ago. So, whether you're on 2023 all the way back through 2019, each and every one of these utilities is available for all of those different versions. It is a simple installer now. We don't have a version-specific installer any longer. So the same version installer will work, really for all versions. So if you've got, 2 or 3 versions of Civil 3D installed, you only have to install this one time, and it will attach itself to each of those Civil 3Ds. All right, with the time that we have, I thought I would we'll hit some of the most popular utilities that we have, and by far and away, the most popular one is import from Google. This came about, over 10 years ago now, if you can imagine. When Autodesk kind of took out the Google Earth integration from Civil 3D. That was Civil 3D 2012 was the last version that existed in. But the way that worked back in the day was you had to have Google Earth installed on your system. You would open in Google Earth, you'd zoom into the area that you cared about, and you flipped over to AutoCAD or Civil 3D, ran this special routine, and it would import that imagery out of Google Earth into your AutoCAD. Right. It also had you also had the opportunity to bring in terrain models, based on Google's terrain data. That's something that Autodesk hasn't brought back yet. So I completely understand that we've got live maps and whatnot that are based on Bing. However, that that image or that terrain hasn't been brought back. So just to show a little bit about how that works, the import from Google button, right? We don't have to have anything extra special loaded on the machine. So, when I select that, it will open me up right to the point in my drawing, that is centered on my screen. The only thing that you have to do is zoom in or out if you want to, but know that you don't have to pan around inside of here, even though we allow it. You don't have to do that. Basically, the center of what's visible on your display will be the center of the square. We have the option to import just the georeferenced image. We've got the option to bring in a 10 surface, or we can bring in them both, right? So I'll do both of them just for show. If you bring in a terrain surface, it's going to start asking you spacing questions, right? What's the X interval? What's the Y interval? And then it's going to tell you approximately how many points that's going to bring in. Right. The one thing that I tell everybody is consider the source of this data, right? It's open source information. It's NGS-based information. So kind of the same data that's used to make quad sheets is the level of data that we're getting here. So you're not doing yourself any favors if you say, I want 1 unit by 1 unit, in this case 1 foot by 1 foot. The data is not that tight, so all you're making it do is interpolate more, but you're not getting anything better of a surface from it, and it will take a while to bring in that number of points. So I'm going to do this 50 by 50. It's going to be approximately 500 points there or so, and we'll say okay. We are at times at the mercy of how fast Google will provide this information to us. So if yours is taking a while, that's why. But just like that, I'm going to regen that, and you can see everything. So what we do is, number one, the imagery. gets brought in. The image is in the exact same folder as the DWG file resides. We go ahead and take the terrain information, we make a surface out of it. We utilize whatever command default style or whatever style is designated in command defaults, for the style that it assigns. Right? If we look at surfaces, we call it, Google Terrain, and then, a whole bunch of numbers. But ultimately, you can, at this point, you can rename this. You can do whatever you want to with it, so that you can use it. If we were to kind of go back and look at, the next most popular utilities, those are some of the piping utilities, right? By far and away, the Google import is the most popular, but second most popular is what I call the suite of the gravity pipes. And the way that these have always been meant is, they started with a request, kind of to make Civil 3D work a little more like Land Desktop did back in the day, and just to provide some, I'm going to say grading tools for pipes, but really tools to get kind of consistent slopes across a pipe run, to be able to designate starting and ending inverts, and just let the product kind of figure out everything in the middle. So that's what we've done. We've got a routine that we call pipe grading. It's going to ask us to select part 1, select part 2. Right? I'm doing this on the entire run. However, if you only want to do this on a couple of, a smaller subset of the run, that's absolutely fine. It's asking for the starting invert. Then it's going to ask for a new grade, right? And that's the kind of the overall grade between the start and the end. But you know what? Maybe I want every one of these to be at minus 2.5%. And it's going to ask if I want to introduce any node drops in the structure. So we'll do a 10th there. And just like that, that routine went through and made every pipe across the run 2.5%. Pipe invert does something similar, only it does it based off of invert elevations. Right? Again, we can select the beginning, select the end. It's going to ask me the starting invert. It'll ask me the ending invert. Let's just say 610 is what I want the last invert to be. Again, that same node drop. And we can see, here's our beginning 621, our beginning our ending 610. And it calculated and pushed a consistent, 3.3% pipe slope, through there. Pipe elevation will, essentially raise or lower either an entire network or a subset of a network. In that if I, and I'm doing all of this from profile view, but you could certainly do it from plan view as well. Right? Maybe I want to raise, this pipe run 2 feet. And it will move the entire thing, kind of up or down based on your selection. And then the last part, or the last one that I will talk about, is quick edit pipes. And quick edit pipes was, we modeled it off of quick edit feature lines. And if you think about what you're able to do in quick edit feature lines, you can hover over a feature line and you can change either, an elevation at a point or a slope or a grade between 2 points. And that's, it's kind of what we wanted to do here as well. And so, and I guess I'll kind of zoom in up here, and because I've been hovering, just hovering, I can see the slope between or on that pipe, the 3.3%. If I get to the end, I can, if I'm not over a label, I can see what its invert elevation is. If I want it, I can click. If I wanted just to enter something, let's say 610, you'll see that it drops, that particular invert. If we wanted to change this, right now it's at -6%. If I wanted to make it -3%. So again, the idea behind that is just being able to very quickly and easily roll through and make changes, to pipe information based off of what you know. All right, I've got time for probably maybe one more, and another tool that's actually growing in popularity with the surveyors right now is profile from points. And if the idea behind this came, I was working with the survey team. I live in Virginia Beach, Virginia, and what you're looking at is an entrance to the Lynnhaven River from the Chesapeake Bay. And just by nature of how the currents are in this area, there is a huge problem with shoaling, to the point where the city multiple times a year will, basically, do surveys of this particular area just to see what does, how bad is the shoaling at in this particular location. So that's what we're looking at. The red, these are actual points, where they took soundings. What I'm going to do, just to make this a little bit easier to see for right now, is let's turn the image off, and just a little bit, with how the routine works. Their survey team wanted kind of an easy way to, what, I've got all these points. What's the profile look like? And trying to explain and work, with surveyors of, oh yeah, you got to create an alignment and then a profile view, and that's a whole lot of clicks. So behind the scenes, we do all of that. Right? If you think about what it takes to create a profile, we do that behind the scenes. Our goal is just to make it a little bit easier. So the way that this one works is we have multitude of ways to select the points. If you do all point group window select or numeric range, it will process those points in order, in sequential order. So, if you collect things cross-sectionally, that may not be what you want. In this case, I'm just going to say select in drawing because I want to just kind of roll through and pick a couple. Right, I said we're doing all the same things, so we're going to create an alignment. I need to give it a name, right? So I'm not feeling very. I can't think of the word that I'm looking for there, but we'll just go with align for the alignment name. Prof1 for the design, or for the profile name. Again, we can pick the styles. Most of the time, I would encourage people to pick a style that's not going to display, or at the very least isn't going to plot. But for show, we're going to be able to see these, and then we go through and pick points, right? And when I pick them this way, it's in the order that they are selected in is how they get processed, right? So let's come over here. We'll pick some more so we can see that it does get a little bit deeper. And just doing that, you can see that it drew the alignment. So there's the alignment for us already. It's asking me for a point for the insert or for the profile. And just like that, we can see what that profile looks like, right? Obviously, it's Chesapeake Bay. It's number one, it's very shallow. Number two, it's not very exciting until you got get out into the Navy and the shipping channels. But nonetheless, there's our profile. This worked really good, especially for like surveyors doing cross section of ditches and things like that. You want to see what the profile of that ditch looks like. Here's a great tool for that. So it is about a quarter till, and what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to stop and turn this back over to open things up for questions.